everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to a new episode of the Mind and Muse Crafts Podcast. I am your host, Caroline, and I am here on this lovely Friday morning. Today I am recording on Friday, October the 11th, and I am coming to you from my home on the island of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, where I live with my husband and our pet dog, Snoopy. And every 2 weeks or so, I come back to this channel and I have a small conversation, a short conversation with you about the crafty side of my life, which includes projects that I crochet, projects not too frequently, but some projects that I knit, some projects that are sewn, and every once in a while, projects that have been felted. So whatever I deem worthy of sharing with you during this episode, well, that's basically what comes up. So this week, this is episode 34, and I think it is the first time out of my podcasting experience that I come to you with nothing on my hook, but all of my projects that I had talked to you about previously completed, and some new projects that you never saw before that I mentioned that I wanted to start that have also been completed over these past 2 weeks. So let's start with walking the talk. And in the walking the talk part of this podcast, I share with you the way that I wear things that have reached the end of the line, but in addition to reaching the end of the line, have also been out in the real world with me, or are planned to be out in the real world with me shortly. So today I have a jewelry set that I made a way time back in it, but has ever since been one of my favorites. It is made using a store-bought pendant. I know that I purchased this at one of those, a small store that I believe is no longer open. Well, not where I purchased it. And it was a store that specialized in selling handmade, hand-sewn clothes, but like a more boho style, and so they always had lots of big jewelry and with gemstone beads and macrame and things like that. And so I purchased this, and I strung it with using a string of, this is African Jasper, large African Jasper beads. And at some point I even had a ring made out of one of these beads, a large ring that I have no idea where it ended up to because I cannot find it. But I have the earrings. I know that mostly your fashion gurus will tell you that you should not wear large necklaces with long earrings, but the bead is small, so I think it looks okay. And in addition to that I prepared a while back and has always been one of my favorites, I am also wearing today my All Hallows bracelet set. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, see if I can get a close-up of that. I'll try and insert a picture. Things always look better. Not always, but for the most part, it's easier to get a still picture of exactly the things that you want to show than it is to get it on video. So basically, you'll see that over these past 2 weeks, I have been working on making spiral cords, which is not a difficult task at all once you get the beginning, once you get the start done and you see exactly what you're working into. There are several free tutorials on YouTube, and they really help me out a lot, because the idea of this is that you start out with either a chain of a certain length, depending on how wide you want the spiral to be, or you start out with a magic loop, same, of a certain amount of single crochets, probably a certain amount of single crochets into the magic loop, and depending on how wide you want your spiral to be, you have more or less single crochets. So I believe I had 5 single crochets into a magic loop for each of these, and then I worked into the back loop of each of those. And then the idea of working into the back loop is that you turn your work inside out, and you are having the right side on the inside, the wrong side on the outside, and you are working into a horizontal bar that separates your stitches. So you're not really working into the stitch, the front loop, nor into the back loop, nor into the third loop that you can see. You're working into a horizontal bar. There are actually two of them, but you only need one that separates your two stitches. And that is the stitch that is most difficult to see, especially and probably mostly on that first round. Once you get that first round done, you just keep on going around and around and around, working only into that horizontal bar with a single crochet, and you make it as long as you want. So the technique is not difficult. It is just the beginning part, just that first initial round, so that because it's hard to see that bar the first time around until you start pulling it out and working into it. Then it becomes evident. Then it's just there in your face, and in less than an hour you can whip up one of these spirals, and they're useful for many things. People use them to make the bands for the, what do you call them, for your pocketbook. There's bands for your pocketbook. They use them on drawstring bags. You know, those drawstring beach bags where you have the cord going through around the top, and also creating the style of a backpack that you put on your back. They're used for belts. They are used for necklaces, bracelets, for whatever it occurs to you that you could use them. And so I worked them into bracelets simply by adding a cap to the end of each. Well, whatever I had, I was, as normal, trying to work with things that I had in my stash. So I had some silver cap, gold cap, and a cone, little copper-colored cones, and I just added dangles to the joining side, the side where I have my, the side where it closes, and I just made sure that loop where I'm going to catch on with my closure was extra big, so I can hook in some charms. There's some beautiful Halloween charms out there. I really just worked with whatever I had on hand. So I've got some witches and witches hats, and there's a pumpkin around here somewhere, and there are lots of owls. I had lots of owls for some reason. And then beads of different colors, and I just made my set. As you work it up, this spiral texture is the texture that you get. Quite different from when you work, let's say, an I-cord. The texture of the cord itself is a bit different. It is sturdier. It is like thicker, and although it will bend, it will also keep its shape. So I think it's perfect for a bracelet. So I am working up on doing a picture tutorial for how to create these, and that will be on my blog, mindandmusecrafts.com, hopefully before Halloween, because the idea was to make them up in the colors of Halloween. And so that is my walking the talk, and it is also my first end of the line, because these were not around last week, and since they're so easy to make, well, now I've got 3 of them. I did start one in black, because I originally wanted the set to be green, orange, and black, but it was just way too difficult to see. As a newbie to this technique, it was way too difficult to see the horizontal bar that I had to work into. So that is the end of my walking the talk section. And hopefully I have convinced you that there are lots of things that you can hand make, and that there's no reason for you to be shy about taking them out into the world and wearing them. But that brings me to the second section of my podcast, which is those other projects that have reached the end of the line. And it just so happens that in this episode, all of my projects have reached the end of the line. So you'll remember here I have called this my mother of the groom wedding dress. It is completed. What did I have left to do? I had to hide all the ends. They were all hidden away. I had to redo the back seam because my pineapples were not matching, and so now the back seam is also matching. I think basically that was it. Oh, I had to purchase the underdress, which I have now found the underdress that I am going to wear with it. I don't know. I put it too low, I guess, and you're not actually seeing it, but there is a dress underneath here that I have purchased to go under it, and that I think covers up enough, because basically when you're wearing this, you're walking around in your undergarments because there are so many holes in the actual dress that it's really not covering anything up. So depending on how you feel about walking around in your undergarments, well, I wanted at least to feel a small dress underneath, so I felt a little bit more covered. So I've purchased a dress. As I have told you, what I was looking for was one that had these small straps, those very small straps, tiny spaghetti straps, and that was a color that was similar to the color of the yarn. So if you're new here, if you're new here, first of all, thank you for pressing that watch button and for joining me. And this is a craft that I have been talking about for, I believe, since August. At the end of August, I began it because I needed a dress for my son's wedding, and I decided that the best thing would be to make it myself. I don't know why I decided that, but I did. And so this pattern is based on a pattern published by Annie's Crochet, and they produce a magazine. I believe it's called Crochet with an exclamation point. And in one of the issues, they included the everlasting wedding dress, and I have showed it several times on the podcast. There'll be a link also in the description box below, probably for the last time on this podcast, if anybody is here for the first time and wants to go check that out. Although the pattern is in the magazine, they will also sell you the pattern separately, so you could get that if you wanted to. And all of the changes that I made to the garment are now up on my Ravelry page. I am Mind and Muse Crafts, also on Ravelry, and I try to put up a project page for everything that I show here on the podcast, though I'm pretty sure that doesn't get done. I'm looking across the room now at my moon bag that's hanging over there, and I know that I haven't put up a project page for the moon bag, but I try. For the most part, I try, especially things such as this that have taken a significant part of my crafting time, and that I feel very, I don't know if I should say proud, but proud of myself because I completed a project that at the beginning I wasn't too sure if I'd be able to finish it, but also satisfied that I finished something that I started and that it's usable, that I'm going to be able to wear it. It is getting a little bit cooler now, so the evenings are not as warm as they were at one point, and the wedding is next week, so hopefully, and it's at 5 p.m., so hopefully it'll be cool enough and the emotions and all that will overtake everyone to the sense where I will not feel if this is making me hot or not. So that is the end of the line for my mother of the groom's wedding dress. I'll probably pop in a couple of pictures after the wedding if I remember, because for Elizabeth's wedding, I remember that we just never had a chance to take a picture of us together with our with the crochet items that we had at the wedding, and with our fascinators. So we'll see. I'm hoping that when you're the mother of the bride, you're a little bit more involved than when you're a mother of the groom. When you're mother of the groom, you're just the mother of the groom, but it's not, it doesn't, I don't know. It seems to me, from my experiences of what has been going on pre-wedding, that it's not, it doesn't, I don't have such a big roll as I had for when my daughter was getting married. So I hopefully will have time to get all the pictures in for you guys. And so that's it for the mother of the groom dress. And thank you for all your wonderful comments. Thank you, all of you who wrote to me and told me, yes, wear that dress, helping to convince me that it would look okay in the end, and that I didn't need to be shy about showing off my makes. And so yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go with what all of you said. And Cora's here got a piece on her head that is not her hair, but it is, I am hoping that it will be a headpiece that I could wear on my hair at the back and simulate that I have this long curly hair that I have always wanted to have. So that's the end of the line for that. And things that you have seen before that have also reached the end of the line, well, one of them is right behind me. My socks, the crochet socks, that are an entry for the Mischief Managed Mal. They are now complete. Ends have been woven in, and they are ready to be worn. This it wasn't really a good yarn choice for this pattern, but live and learn, right? I figured it out after I had already begun, and so I didn't want to rip it back. But this is the, let me see. Maybe you can see that. This is the Vintage Waves pattern by Elizabeth of the Crochetcakes Podcast. I made them into shorties. I did not make them full length. And it's a simple pattern to work up. And if your yarn is, well, I didn't find this one to be too appropriate because my contrasting yarn blended in too well with the colors of the main color. So I think I would have used something more contrasting. But yeah, they fit well. And since they're shorties, I'm sure they're going to get a lot of use. So that was one entry for the Mischief Managed Mal. Have you gotten your entry in already? Since I have a relationship with Crochetcakes, right? For those of you that don't know, she is my daughter, and this whole podcasting thing started out for me by sharing the screen with her on her Crochetcakes podcast. You can go and see back episodes of that. As a matter of fact, since we're in October, I have an idea. Why don't you go back, and I'm going to put a little link up in the next 2 videos if I remember, so you can go back to our Halloween special from 2 years back. I think that was one of our greatest episodes. Well, it was one of the episodes where I had the most amount of fun in. And so if you like watching repeats and reruns for Halloween, well, that's a good thing. You can go back and watch the Halloween episode of the Crochetcakes podcast, where there was a lot of great fun. And unfortunately, when I'm alone, I'm not as much fun as when I'm with my daughter. So I don't know what Halloween is going to be like this year. But I probably will get in one more episode before Halloween, and so I'll decide whether we can have some good fun then or not. So that is my first entry, and I am very proud to exhibit them. Proud because it is my daughter's pattern, and proud because that was a yarn that I was saving forever. Oh, this is Bellatrix. The yarn, this colorway is the Bellatrix colorway. It was dyed up by Little Bean Loves Yarn way back. I have been saving it. I have been hoarding it. And unfortunately, I have to say, I don't think I chose the best project to show off the colors. Or maybe it was backwards. Maybe it was not the best yarn for that pattern. So I might be making that again, because I really want to have a pair of socks with that wave, that vintage wave really shows up. So initially I was calling mine my Wicked Waves. But since I really can't see those waves too much, I don't know. I guess that makes them all the more wicked. So my socks are done. This is Socktober, and so I am very happy to have completed a pair of socks for the month of Socktober. But I am ambitious, and I would like to have another pair in before. There are a couple of podcasters, or maybe I don't think they're all podcasters. They might just be yarn companies or pattern designers that are running or hosting CALs that have to do with making socks. I know that Allie of Little Drops of Wonderful always this time of year is running her Strictly sock. CALs, the Crochet Project. If you don't know who they are, you should look them up. They are also crochet designers. They also are knitting designers, but for the most part, it's a group of women that are trying to put crochet in a high place and show that, especially in sense of garments and accessories, that things that can be made with crochet that are very wearable and very presentable. So you can take a look at that. Speaking of that, I don't know if you let me go back for a minute. Crochet Project, they're hosting their sock along. I believe for the most part it is on Facebook, although they do have a hashtag for Instagram. They also, I don't know if at the moment, but during last week they had an option for a free pattern where you could go to one of the sites where they have their patterns and download one of their socks for free. I can tell you the name of that sock so you can look it up and see if it is still free, because I have it saved here on my, it's called the Diamond and Geezer socks. You can get these. Well, last week they put up an announcement on their Instagram feed where they were offering these socks as a free download. See, the Crochet Project. So I don't know. It is designed by Joanne Scrace, who is at the moment doing the most amount of designs for the Crochet Project. And it's cuffed down. It's cuffed down. So I thought for a moment that it was toe up, because you know that I've mentioned before that I have never made a cuff down crochet sock. So that's one of the patterns that I downloaded, but I'm looking at several others that I want to try and complete before the end of October. Okay, so continuing then with the projects that have reached the end of the line. Let's go for some things. I'm just going to continue. My dog is carrying on barking in the background, but I am just going to continue with all of his noise because that's real life. That's the way it works when you're podcasting from your home. You can't always have silence. You can't always have the best lighting. You can't always have the best of everything. And I want to get this done. So, continuing with our end of the line projects, I was sharing with you on the last episode my crinoline masquerade girl doily, which I have completed. Okay. She is no longer in the picture frame because I don't know why I didn't just leave her as a doily. I guess because I felt that she was too flimsy, but that's what doilies are. I don't know. But I guess also because I thought I wasn't too sure if I was actually going to put her on a table or if maybe I would want to use her as crochet art, like hanging her up on the wall or something like that. So what I wanted to use burlap and kind of make some rugged edges and glue her or sew her onto that. But I didn't want to go and spend money on it, so I realized that I had one of these bags where you put garments in under the bed, and it's made out of this very, like, I guess it's cotton, but it's very thin, almost like a paper feeling type of thing. And so it had broken a zipper on it and I was going to throw it out when I noticed it, and I said, well, I can cut a circle out of that material, and I just sewed on this, I don't know, edging that I found also in my stash. And I actually sewed it on backwards because I thought it looked better that way. I mean, upside down. And so there she is. She's got a little cat charm on this corner here, because nothing expensive, just something that I found for in the Halloween section, the Halloween aisle. Because she's called Minerva. This is my Minerva doily, because Minerva always had on black. Minerva McGonagall was one of the professors of Hogwarts, and she always had on black with hints of green. And though it wasn't this green, this was the only green that I had in my stash, so I accented her with that green. And then I gave her the cat because Minerva could change into a cat. And I would have liked to have a wand, and so I've still got her hand in this position. Yes, and I'm thinking about getting a wand charm or trying to make one out of wool and just like gluing it there. I was also thinking about in these corners here doing some embroidery and maybe writing out the Witch's Inn or something like that. But yes, I am very pleased with Minerva. Very pleased with Minerva. This is a paid-for pattern. It is a paid-for pattern that can be found on Ravelry. It's the Crinoline Masquerade Girl Doily. And who's the author? Do they have the author? Yes. The author is Celinda Matthews. She makes hers with number 10 mercerized cotton. I used a bit thicker than that. I think this is a 5. And so I used a bigger hook. I used a 2.5 millimeter hook. And so it might be slightly bigger than the original one, but I like it. I think it is my second entry for the Mischief Managed Mal. And I was all about doilies this time of year, so I have a third entry for the Mischief Managed Mal, and it is another doily. It was in my, I think I mentioned it in my crochet, as part of my crochet dreams of the last episode. I hadn't even begun it, I hadn't started it, and so I wanted to do the Boo doily, which is a free pattern. It is a free pattern. It is a free pattern by, let's see, by Marcia Glassner. And so you can go to Ravelry, look up Boo, B-O-O, with a exclamation point, and it will take you to that doily immediately, and that doily will take you to a site where you can download a pattern for, well, I'm not sure about that, but the download might be on Ravelry, but you can download the pattern. And it is well written. It is pretty clear. There are a couple of occasions where I had doubts if I had to skip some stitches or not, because it wasn't explicitly said, though it was implied because of the way, when you look at a zoom in on the photo that she has there. But besides that, I think it was great. It was not time consuming. I don't think you could do it in one sitting, but that's just me, because I don't do anything in one sitting, but maybe you could. So this is already my finished object, because I didn't have a chance to well, if you were on Instagram, I have on my, and you follow me, I have uploaded some pictures. This is the finished object, and again, I am presenting it in this frame, trying not to get that much glare from the lighting, because I wanted to be able to show it. And this one is only made up in number 5 cotton, so it's not as thick as Minerva, and so it was pretty flimsy to try and hold up to show it you. But this I am calling The Dementors Are Here doily. And it is a wonderful make. Works up really cute. I mean, you're not seeing anything, and all of a sudden you start seeing the shapes of the the shapes of the ghosts, and I've messed up over here. Let's see. Maybe you can see that the mouth here is a lot smaller than this because I left out a couple of stitches that I needed there. So this mouth is smaller than all the rest of them, but it was okay. When I realized it on the next round, I wasn't going to go back and rip it off, so I just figured they don't all have to be the same. But that is my Dementor's doily, and while I'm on this doily obsession, it occurred to me that maybe with the upcoming Christmas season, and Thanksgiving also, maybe you would be willing to join in on me for a doily make-along. I'm not too sure if doilies are knitted because I'm not an avid knitter. I don't really do it that much. But I really wouldn't care if you wanted to knit it up, if that's a possibility. I don't know. But if you would like to join me on a doily along, well, I was thinking about not so much a doily along as a cal. I was thinking about let's have a swap for Christmas, and let's exchange. Let's be willing to exchange, to make up a doily, and to exchange that doily with somebody else who is interested in exchanging. So if you have any interest in that, please let me know in the comments below, simply by saying something in reference to doily swap. And what I would like is that I know that some of these doilies can be very extravagant, they can be very time consuming, they can be very meticulous, and so there are a lot of small stitches going on in there, and a lot of times you have to make it up with a small hook. So that mention underneath, if you're willing to participate in the swap, just write in the comment below doily swap, and underneath, how about putting in the name of a pattern that you have seen that you would like to receive. And so that way this gives the person that we swap with an idea. That is one way we could run it. Another way we could run it would be just to pick one doily pattern, and everybody makes the same doily pattern and we all exchange it with each other. That would also be a possibility. Or we could all pick, those of us that want to participate could pick, make a small bundle of the doilies we would be willing to make for others. And then those are the doilies from which you choose when you participate in the swap. So there's a little bit of thinking that still has to go on, but I don't want to think about it if nobody is interested. If at least one person is interested, then we'll do a swap between that person and me. There's no problem. There's no hard feelings. But if more than one person is interested, then we'll exchange names and figure out what doily we want to make for that person as a Christmas exchange. And so I thought about a doily because they're easy to fold up, they fit in an envelope, they can go in the mail cheap, and it's a nice way of saying Merry Christmas to somebody by allowing them to put a decoration. Now, if somebody does not celebrate Christmas but would still like to participate, that's fine. You don't have to receive a holiday doily. We could just have some generic doilies that are made up, and we could put some of those into the listing, and you could just make it clear that you do not celebrate Christmas but you're willing to participate, and so that the person that you swap with will understand that they should just make a generic doily that can be used for decoration but not necessarily is referencing any type of holiday. So think about that. If you are interested, then just in the comments below, the only thing you have to do is write doily swap or doily swap partner, something to that effect, to let me know that you're interested. And if enough people are willing, like I say, doesn't have to be enough. If one person is willing, you'll swap with me. If two people are willing, we'll swap between us, the three of us, and we'll have ourselves a nice exchange from somebody that you might not even know during the next end of the year or holiday season. So yes, it could be something for this channel in the upcoming months. It would be short because we're already in October, and if you wanted to make it there by Christmas, I guess it should be sent out by the beginning of December. So it's a decision that we'll have to make up quickly, but let's give it a try. Let me know if you're interested, and I'll get on to the details of that, and we'll figure it out together between those of us that are interested. Okay, I've got one more thing to share with you, which wasn't on my hook the last time either, and it is I believe it's called the Rustic pumpkin pattern. I'll just give me a chance and I'll look it up for you because I do have it set aside. The little Rustic pumpkin pattern. And that is a pattern, I don't remember if I shared it with you the last episode for my crochet dreams, but I think I did mention that I hadn't crocheted up a pumpkin, and I thought that was something that I should do. So I'll just show you here. A picture of the site where you can find a free pattern posted to the blog. This is the Yarn and Chai. The Yarn and Chai website, yarnandchai.com. The pattern is free on the blog. You can also purchase a downloadable PDF without any advertisements and advertisement ad-free if you like that. So the pumpkin is crocheted up using half double crochets in the third loop. So if you haven't done that before, it's something to experiment with. It's really a lot of fun. It's really easy, and it is a make that can work up quickly. This is my version. This is my version. And so you can see all the ridges that are formed by working in the third loop, and at the same time that it creates ridges that stand out, it creates like these indents like you usually have for a pumpkin. I thought at some point maybe I wouldn't do them every row, but every 2 rows or something like that, so that this part here would be thicker, which is the way it usually is on a pumpkin. But I just followed the pattern for the main part, for the body. And then this is crocheted flat back and forth, and then you seam it together, and there's a seam somewhere around here. She gives you some instructions for seaming them so that you can pretty much hide that seam. Right? My seam is there. The only reason I know is because there's a space between these two. But virtually you really can't tell unless you're looking for it. Then she cinches it, which is the part that I found that was the most difficult, because in order to cinch you need to, the pattern starts out with a magic loop down here, and then in that magic loop you build up vertically, as if you were making the cuff of some garment. You build up vertically and come back down, and then go into the magic circle, and build up and go down, and you do that all the way around. So when you're finished, it's attached here and open at the top. And so you gather the top up with a string of yarn to pull it together, but then you have to stuff and cinch. And in order to cinch it, you're going all the way through the top, all the way through the pumpkin, and connecting to these holes that are left by the magic loop. And I found that to be very difficult unless you had a very large needle. My needles are all small, and so I found it really difficult to do that. Also, she doesn't tell you how much stuffing to put in it, but I had initially put in a lot more, but I just couldn't because I couldn't go through it. So that part, make sure you have a very long needle, or you've made your own instrument, maybe with a hanger or something like that, so that you can go through. Because I wanted to make a big pumpkin, but then I said there's no way I can make it really big because of the fact that the cinching was kind of difficult because of the needle. But I made this up where this is Red Heart Super Saver, and it's the pumpkin colorway. Here it is in all its glory. Pumpkin colorway. So it was nothing special, Red Heart Super Saver. And I really never saw pumpkin in this color. It always seemed to me to be too orange, too all in your face orange. But I also had some unknown yarn that was like this dark burnt orange color. So I used the two yarns together, which is why I used a bigger hook. I used a 4.5 and she only uses a 3.5 because the pattern is based on DK yarn, and this is in worsted weight with a fingering weight. And so that's why you can see like some depth here, because you can see some darker color among the orange. And it made it look more to me like the pumpkin color. But as normal, I ran out. I got half of it done and I ran out. So the other half I used, I don't have it out here, but I used also a fingering weight, but that fingering weight I know is 75% BFL and 25% nylon because I purchased it from Nora George. It is also the pumpkin colorway, and it is the colorway that I used for my cardigan, my good old vintage cardigan by that was in Simply Crochet. And Elizabeth and I both made a version of that a year or so back. So I had some left over. I just held it together with the orange, and I thought it kind of looked more natural that way because pumpkins are not always the same color all the way through. So that gave it some, in addition to the texture, it gave it some depth to the color. And then I didn't like the fact that she puts the cinnamon stick into the hole that's at the top. You actually close that hole only up to the point where you can fit in whatever you're going to be using as your stick before you actually sew it shut. And so I just crocheted up this with some, I think that is actually Stylecraft Special DK in the walnut colorway, and I just crocheted up this design that I invented, which is that little cap that a lot of squashes have at the top. And this was left over from Elizabeth's wedding crochet with one of those fringes, and I thought it looked cute there. So that's how I put together my pumpkin. The only downside to it was it wasn't as big as I wanted it to be. I had wanted it to be a bit larger. But I think it turned out pretty nice. I like it a lot. I would make another one if I found an instrument that I could use. I think maybe it could be if you have a Tunisian crochet where they have crochet on one side and a knitting needle on the other type of thing. Maybe one of those could be used, but I don't have any of those. But if I find something that I can put through a very large pumpkin, then I will try and make one that is bigger. I have some white yarn, like an ivy white. I've always wanted to make a white pumpkin. So that's my pumpkin that wasn't around last week, and now it's finished. And with that, we have reached the end. I have shared all the projects that I had on my crochet hook. They have all been completed. The only project that I have left is the project that is on my knitting needles, which is the shawl that I'm about to call the shawl that should not be named because I have worked on it for so long. But I have set, the reason I don't have anything new on my hooks is because I have decided that I am not going to begin anything new until I have finished that shawl. I have some 40 or 45 rows to go, which, given the fact that I've already completed 136 rows, doesn't seem like all that much. The difference is that those rows are very long now and they do take me some time, but I am determined to do 2 rows a day, and in the next 20 days I will get it completed before the end of the year. So I'm hoping for that, because if I can't start a new crochet project, I'm going to be upset. But maybe I won't take it so drastic. I know that in the upcoming weeks I won't be starting anything new, because it's the week of my son's wedding and we'll be having family over. There'll be visits, and I just don't want to occupy my mind with that. So she says, right? Because that never happens. But I'm going to try and dedicate a lot of time to that one project and try and get it off those needles, and probably get some wear into it. This is a time of year, as we get closer to the end of the year and the Christmas holidays, where it does get a little bit cooler on the island. So there might be some day where it's very rainy and I will actually be able to use it. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for listening for all of my chatting, a continuous chatting on my dress. It was a big project, so I thought it deserved a lot of my time. Thank you for your comments and your motivation and your support for this podcast and for all of the items that I choose to present. And I hopefully will have been able to motivate some of you to get, when you don't have a lot of time, some of these projects are pretty good projects because they are done quickly. You get them done quickly, and there's a lot of satisfaction and feeling, wow, I really did a lot of things this week. So until we meet again, think about the Doily exchange. Maybe you would want to participate in that with me and a couple of other people from this podcast, a couple of other viewers from this podcast. So until we meet again, keep those things in mind. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself healthy. And by all means, keep crafting. Bye for now.